2 of every 5 homes in this state are quietly filling up with radioactive gas, and the seller doesn't even have to test for it. Welcome to Minnesota! I am going to earn the next 14 minutes or so in the next 30 seconds, so stay with me. Between July of 2024 and July of 2025, Minnesota gained 8,300 more people than it lost. First time that has happened since 2018. Every relocation channel in this market is about to tell you that Minnesota is back. But here's the part that they will skip though. From 2021 to 2023, this state lost a net of 48,253 people. So we clawed back roughly 19% of the whole. Listen, I've seen Minnesota play against the Colts. We do make a comeback. That's not a comeback. That's just a state that has stopped bleeding. Now, I'm telling you that in the first minute because I think the whole point of this video is predicated on you knowing that I'm not trying to sell you on Minnesota. I sell homes in the metro here in the Twin Cities. Wayzata, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Woodbury, Plymouth. And if you move here and hate it, I don't get paid twice. Now, this is 10 things that nobody is going to tell you before you move here. And no, it's not the accent or the cold, not whether you can handle it. These are things that actually cost you money. Number 1, radon. Roughly 2 of every 5 homes in Minnesota are filled with dangerous levels of radon gas, and the seller doesn't even have to test for it. And that's, by the way, not a number that I pulled off a blog. That's why we have the Minnesota Radon Awareness Act. Here's what that law does and doesn't do. A seller does have to disclose any knowledge that they have of radon in the home. A seller does not have to test for it. Read that again. The disclosure requirement is fully satisfied by a seller who has never tested and therefore knows nothing. It's like if I plug my ears and say, "Oop, I didn't hear anything, sorry." Now, radon is a leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and the state health department does recommend that you do a test every single time a buyer is purchasing a home. The good news is that this is the cheapest problem in the video. A test is inexpensive and mitigation is basically a pipe and a fan. I've never had radon blow up a transaction. Blow up? That's probably bad to say when it comes to gas. Anyway, I have had plenty though where we've caught it in the inspection window and the seller paid for the system. In fact, unless something goes really off the rails, generally speaking, it can be expected that if it is discovered that you have high levels of radon, you can get seller paid closing costs towards a new system or have a brand new system put into the home prior to you going in through the door. If you take one thing from this video, test for radon. If you take 2 things, well then just stay for number 3 because, you know, that one shows up at closing and almost nobody warns you. Number 2, now there is something called the truth in the sale of housing. And that is a pre-sale inspection done by the sellers that is mandated by a lot of cities here in the metro. Minneapolis, St. Paul, South St. Paul, Bloomington, Columbia, Maplewood, New Hope, Richfield, St. Louis Park. All of these have a truth in the sale of housing inspection, meaning there is a inspection that has to be done by the city in order for it to be available on the market and close. Now, is it kind of a cash grab? Yeah. Can it substitute for a buyer's due diligence inspection? I wouldn't say so. I would say that is more of just secondary information that you can go off of, but I would not base either for or against a home based on what a truth in sale of housing report has to say. And also, here's what confuses a lot of out-of-state buyers is that most of these violations do not have to be fixed. They just have to be disclosed. It's more of a transparency document rather than a repair list. You're going to find missing smoke detectors, unpermitted work, electrical work that Jimmy Bob Don Bill III did because he was a friend and he did it for a 6-pack of beer in 1974. And if you're buying mostly where I work, you know, in the West Metro, like I said, or in Woodbury, Egan, they don't even have a truth in sale of housing. So it's not a standard requirement across the suburbs. So it's not something that if you are a buyer, I would set a proper expectation for to expect. Municipal ordinances change all the time. So confirm with the specific city that you're offering in before you actually purchase. But when a comment section tells you that Minnesota requires a city inspection to sell a home, that person is probably describing Minneapolis and then just assuming that it applies to the whole state. That, by the way, that's kind of the theme of this entire video, is that Minnesota is just not one market. It's about 120 cities that kind of just, you know, all made up their own rules. All right, number 3, state deed tax. Now, Minnesota charges a deed tax of 0.33% of the sale price. On a $900,000 home, that is $2,000 $970. Don't freak out, buyers. It is a seller cost. So if you are buying right now, that is not going to be your line item. But here's who that matters to. You move here, you buy, and then 3 years later, your company moves you again. Well, now you're the seller, and this is a number that you should have known about when you bought. No one making a moving to Minnesota video talks about the D-tax. I'm talking about the D-tax. I guess now this is the entire personality of the channel, and I've, made peace with it. Number 4, file your homestead. So Minnesota has a homestead classification for property taxes. And if you own the home and you live in it, you get a different tax treatment than if you were an investor or it's a cabin for somebody. It is not automatic though, the way that people assume. You file it with the county, and guys, it is real money. And it's one form. That's why I like my title people. They give you the stamp, they give you the form, they highlight what you have to fill out and what you have to sign. And it is mind-blowing to me that people still don't do it when we make it so easy for them to save thousands of dollars. What happens is that people, when they close in July and then they unpack and then they start a new job and then they get busy and then they just forget about it. My clients have no excuse because I make it so easy for them, and I remind them early December to make sure that if you haven't filed your homestead, to still file your homestead. And there's still a handful that don't. So cheers to you, because I guess you got the money that you don't even have to care about that. Number 5. Now, Minnesota requires a well and septic disclosure when a property transfers. If there is a well, it does have to get documented. Now, right now, you're probably thinking like, Mackenzie, I'm buying in the burbs. This is not me. Yeah, but this metro was built on water, and it grew outward in rings of 150. If you get out on the western side of Lake Minnetonka, you're out towards Orono or Independence, or heck, you're heading out towards, Rogers and Ramsey, you may find real acreage and beautiful homes, and a lot of them are on well and septic. Now, this is a completely different inspection conversation than a 2004 build in Plymouth. You have different systems, you have different maintenance, and you have different money that you have to put towards it. So if a listing shows you acreage and the price feels a little too friendly, yeah, I would ask about the well and septic before you fall in love with the kitchen. Halfway, quick break, because I've said radon like 4 times, and you deserve a treat for that. So 4 things about this place that nobody believes. The Mall of America has no central heating system, and it's in Minnesota. The only heated parts of the building are the entrances. It holds between 65 and 75 degrees year-round, using sunlight through more than a mile of sunlights on its roof. Other than that, waste heat off of the light fixtures and the body warmth of roughly 100,000 people a day. So, turns out you're not a shopper, you're a furnace. And honestly, good on them for being efficient. Downtown Minneapolis has the longest continuous skyway system on Earth. It is 69 blocks of enclosed second-story hallway. So we didn't really solve winter. We built a habit trail and, built our lives around it. So I find this really funny because I guess I'm kind of a golfer, not really that good, but Minneapolis has the most golfers per capita of any city in the country, which is hilarious because golf season is more of a rumor than an actual season. Now, while our license plate may say the land of 10,000 lakes, the actual registered count is closer to 12. We're just, being humble about it. We undersold ourselves by like 2,000 lakes, and then we just never corrected it, which is probably the most Minnesota thing I've said on this channel yet. Okay, back to the money. All right, number 6. Now, I have had clients move here from warm states who walk into a home and ask me what the downstairs room is for. Not as a joke, literally, like, it's a question. So basements are close to universal here. You are already digging below the frost line to set a foundation, so you may as well at least build a basement out of that so you can put a TV down there. Which means that the square footage math that you may have learned somewhere else does not necessarily translate. A 3,000 square foot house in the West Metro is often 2,000 above grade and then 1,000 below. Below grade finished square feet is worth real money, but it's not worth the same amount of money that it would be like price per square foot as above grade. And that gap is exactly where out-of-state buyers make mistakes. They overpay because they're looking at one listing and they see this number of X amount of square footage and their brain is doing this math like, oh my gosh, this price per square foot is such a big deal. Do not make your decisions off of price per square foot. It's one of the most misleading metrics that we have in our industry. Knowing what a square foot is worth and where it sits in the house is the job. That's my job, and it's the reason why so many people come to me instead, because I'm helping to guide people make this decision. Now, number 7. Okay, every video here about moving here spends about 9 minutes on whether you can emotionally survive the cold. Okay, you can. You can buy a real coat, you'll be fine. And by year 2, you will be the insufferable person telling visitors that, hey, 20 degrees, it's not that bad. Why did that become New York? 20 degrees, it's not that bad. Be more like, 20 degrees, it's shorts weather. The thing that will actually hurt you, though, is ice dams. Now, the way ice dams happen is that warm air escapes a poorly insulated attic, and it melts the snow that's sitting on the roof. That water then runs down the cold edge of the roof, it refreezes, and then it backs up underneath your shingles and into your walls. And that is a 5-figure repair minimum. And the way that you prevent that from happening is just about insulation and ventilation. So when you're touring a house in July, sweating, and the inspector starts talking about, attic ventilation and soffit baffles, that's not the boring part of the report, and I implore you to keep good focus on that. Buy the house in July, but inspect it like it's February. All right, number 8. In Minneapolis, snow emergencies get declared, and there are restrictions that kick in so crews can plow the thousands of miles of snow. If you park in the wrong place, it is a ticket and a $200 tow. Now, the suburbs will run each of their own rules. In Minnetonka, you cannot park on a public street between 2 and 6 in the morning, not even during a storm, ever, year-round, so that's pretty easy. And, by the way, your sidewalk is your responsibility. Minneapolis ordinances give you 24 hours after a snowfall if you own a house or a duplex to get it done. Don't shovel it, the city will shovel it, and then they'll bill you, and who knows what their hourly is. Now, your first winter, somebody is going to tow your car. It's going to be your fault. And I want you to remember what I told you. Number 9, my favorite statute. You're old when you said you just have a favorite statute. Okay, Minnesota requires a seller to disclose all known material facts about a home. Statute 513.55, quote me on that, is broad, it has strict teeth, and that is what is behind it. A seller does not have to disclose that somebody died in the house, unless it affects the material use and enjoyment of the property. Now, that's kind of subjective, but what that really means is that if somebody, just good old Billy Bob lived a long life till he was 98 and he passed away of natural causes, that does not have to be disclosed because that is just to be expected. But if somebody died of unnatural causes, like kapow or gaga or, da baba, that would have to be disclosed because that is not a natural cause of death. They don't have to disclose a former occupant's HIV or AIDS status, and they do not have to disclose perceived paranormal activity, whereas in some states you actually do have to disclose paranormal activity. Somebody sat in a room in St. Paul and wrote about ghosts into real estate exemption, which means that at some point there was an incident, probably a specific one, with the case number. So legally speaking, the house being haunted, that's a you problem. Just ask the neighbors for that one. All right, number 10. Everything so far applies statewide, but this last one is more about the West Metro, which is where I sell and where most people watching are probably going to end up at. Now, Lake Minnetonka has 125 miles of shoreline. Not acres, miles. It has 18 islands, 130 feet deep at its deepest point in Crystal Bay, and it's the 9th largest lake in the state, with 13 separate towns and cities that are sitting on it. Now, this is not a lake. It's more of a coastline with property taxes. Now, the name comes from Dakota, which translates roughly to large water. Gotta give credit to the Dakota. After several hundred years of having that name still holds. Wayzata, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Plymouth, all sit in that corridor, but they are not interchangeable, which is what most relocation content gets wrong. Wayzata, it's a walkable downtown, which is sitting on the water, and it's priced accordingly. You got Minnetonka, you got trees and winding roads and a school district that people relocate to for on purpose. Eden Prairie is your corporate spot. That's where a lot of offices are. Plymouth gives you space and newer construction and the strongest value per square foot on the list. Picking between them, it's a whole separate video, and you can't just mesh the West Metro, the North Metro, the East Metro, and the South Metro into their own little pods. It really is the cities underneath them. Now, here is what all 10 of these have in common. None of this is on Zillow. Jackie and Tommy found me on YouTube. They're from Colorado, and their real questions, it was never about square footage. They were about what is it like to move an entire family from my state to Minnesota, which is why I built them an entire itinerary and a gift basket for them so they could come really truly experience Minnesota. If you are curious, I have a full relocation guide in the description down below. I encourage you to download it. It is completely free, and that'll give you a little bit of an insight into what it's like to move to the great white north. Questions, you can always email me or reach out and book a call with me using my link down below. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.